We're lucky to go last on the program today, and on the most important and interesting and exciting topic to do with ESCOs as well, which has actually come up in various ways. So I'm glad to be able to present to you about this. My name is Mark Lister, and I'm the chair of the Efficiency Valuation Organisation, or EVO. And with me is Denis Tengai, who I invited to join me in this presentation because he is really the face of EVO, and he's also been very much behind the organisation of the event today. And I want to thank my colleagues, my ex-colleagues at UNEP, CCC, for the organisation of today. And it has been a great event, just from the quality of presentations, the number of people who've given the number of different perspectives that they have, and it's great to see it come together. I was one of the first people, along with some of the very senior and expert people that you've heard from today in the room, with the idea that there should be a global ESCO network. And actually, from the last panel, I thought I'll give you a quick thought, which I thought for the global ESCO network, which is really why we're here today and seeing it come to life. But in a sense, it's the Super ESCO Association of ESCO associations. So, you know, that's maybe something that we can think of as the way to sort of catalyse the market and bring up the capacity and the scale that we need in the ESCO sector. So our topic today is about what EVO does, and that's measurement and verification in performance contracts. So performance contracting, as we've talked about today, is fundamental to the ESCO sector. It's in the name. It's about performance. And how do we actually know what project performance is? It's come up a number of times today in various ways. In fact, the basis of what I'm presenting on has been mentioned, I think, half a dozen times or more. So can I just quickly check from the room, who has heard before of IPMVP? That's pretty good. Okay, not bad. Who's heard of EVO, by the way? Yeah, less, right? So, but EVO is actually the home of IPMVP and the developer of IPMVP, 23 years old, led by volunteers around the world, as well as a small secretariat led by Denis. And that volunteer includes me, along with the board of experts who oversee the organisation. And the vision is to create trust in energy efficiency, to create confidence in energy efficiency as a reliable and sustainable energy resource. We've heard in very many different ways today that the energy efficiency, the ESCO transaction, has limitations in confidence from the side of the client, from the side of the financier, maybe from all sides in some ways. So the idea of having a fundamental basis in contracts for understanding and being able to agree on energy performance through appropriate measurement and verification is fundamental. And that's what EVO is about, and that's what IPMVP is about. I was horrified to hear that our colleague from Siemens in the last session said that while the performance contract is 10 pages, the M&V agreement is 50 pages. M&V is not easy. It is complicated because, as Pierre said yesterday at one point, and I took note, he said, you can't measure energy efficiency. Not really. You're talking about a measurement of something against a baseline in a future that we don't know how it looks. So there's a lot of complexity around that, and that's why having an agreed protocol for doing this is a key de-risking mechanism that investors need to be comfortable. So the good news is that EVO has developed this a long time ago, and over a number of iterations really refined it to be the standard today. I'm not going to talk too long over these slides, but just to let you know what EVO does. Protocol development, in particular the IPMVP, but other products, and Denis will go into that. Training. So leading the development of training programs and the rollout of training programs around the world through very many training partners who are listed there in many different countries, in major countries in Europe, in Brazil, in my country, Australia, also in Latin America, and in Asia. So a lot of training over a lot of years in a consistent, objective, internationally agreed protocol. And on top of training delivery, the idea that people need to be certified. There needs to be a class of professional in the industry for each country to be able to deliver these services. That's important as well. that we have a sense that we're working with a professional class here who can understand and deliver this on behalf of ESCO projects. So, a little bit of history. Without this protocol, as I think has been said, I don't need to go onto it, but without having this, this comparable basis for risk sharing in contracts, we're in trouble. We can't actually compare different ESCO offers to each other. We can't compare one measure to another without knowing exactly how we're sharing risk. So it's difficult to assess the value of a contract offer from an ESCO without having an understood and agreed basis and a plan for how we'll resolve questions about performance, because it's a performance contract. So we need to have the performance part agreed up front. So as a risk-sharing instrument, the contract has to be agreed and aligned between the parties so that we can overcome the barriers, some of the barriers. This is one of the barriers, one of the many barriers, but the good news is that at least EVO has done this work on M&V to create this document, the IPMVP, the International Performance Measurement and Verification Protocol, as a result of an enormous global effort. And this dates back to 1996-97, emanating from the US, original effort on the North American market, but realizing that there's some commonality here for all markets, and the IPMVP, through the effort of the organisations listed there around the world, to contribute to this and create what is now an internationally agreed, independently verified protocol. This is just mentioning how long ago we're talking about, but there has been updates with new information coming in throughout the period, and EVO has maintained an IPMVP committee staffed by volunteers from around the world to actually help update and address problems as it's been seen to come through. So this has led to a living document that's over time been updated, as you can see, almost 8 times the last time, a couple of years ago. So that core concepts document, which is widely and freely available. So the IPMVP as a protocol is broad-based and it's grassroots. The whole organisation around this are very dedicated people. So not just ESCO practitioners who believe in the ESCO model, but who believe in the very nerdy kind of scientific, technical work of M&V. And so there's an incredible bunch of dedicated engineers and practitioners in the EVO community that are maintained through both a IPMVP committee, the kind of Jedi council for the IPMVP, and then we have a training committee as well to make sure that the training is up to date and reflects that updated protocol. So there's a lot of words here that I won't present in the interest of drinks, but this is a lot of what I've been saying. Maybe just to mention that the protocol is available and free on the website, and also that it's been translated into a lot of languages. I think this slide says 10 languages. I think it's actually more than that from years back. 25 languages. So almost all of the major languages in the world, and one of the most recent organisations that we've signed as a training partner in the part of the world where I work the most in Asia is in Thailand, and they've just translated into Thai. So we have like a lot of coverage for a lot of local market needs. And it is very much embedded in a lot of processes where governments are requiring this as a part of their ESCO sector programs, as a means of de-risking, as a means of taking out one of the variables for progress in the sector. And it's also a reference in another program that was developed, mentioned on the last slide, the International Energy Efficiency Financing Protocol, but I'll let Denny talk about the details of that. So the coverage is quite wide and growing. So as I mentioned, Thailand is a new one on that list. Others are just coming in now. It's fundamentally part of any ESCO sector development program that there needs to be M&V, as you all said. And as I mentioned, verification has been mentioned many times today as a really important building block of growth in the sector at the national level. And just a final point, I guess, from me, that measurement and verification is not monitoring and verification. Monitoring and we see a lot of examples, and in fact, we were talking at lunch about this. the example where we have projects where energy savings are claimed, and we talk about it as being, a leading project with X amount of megawatt hours, X amount of dollars saved before the project is even implemented. That happens quite often. And, even where there is installation happening, there's an assumed level of savings. Well, okay, this is what we expect to happen, therefore it's so. Measurement is compulsory in IPMVP. It's in the name, measurement and verification, because this is actually how we get away from uncertainty. This is how we actually provide confidence in the levels of saving. And that is important for looking at project cash flow, looking at being able to define what projects deliver for financiers and unlocking certainty in the market in that way. So just to summarise my introduction to Evo and the M&V, which is something that you all know about, which is great. It's a informed audience. We need to get the word outside of this room to the rest of the audience that don't know this already, and that's a job for all of us. But fundamentally, measurement and verification, it's the meter that we need for energy efficiency projects. Without this, we can't provide certainty on what the project will deliver. It's about accuracy in calculations and reducing doubt, and thereby reducing risk and reducing premiums and reducing the lack of confidence that some people come to the transaction with. In the process, reducing financing costs, reducing transaction costs. So answering the questions, how much am I going to save? How long will these savings last? And how robust is the project? So I'm going to hand to Denis. He can tell us a little bit more about the actual programs that, just forward on this, the actual programs that Evo is running and the things that I guess are relevant to industry sector capacity building in each of the countries that you represent.
Thanks, Mark. Maybe just before I continue, I will just correct what Mark said at the beginning. He invited me because he wanted me to be the last speaker. He didn't want to be
I'll have the last word.
Yeah. So I'm going to start my intervention by something that I should say at the end, but it's as you have seen, we are very proactive in updating the IPMVP. It's every 5 years we tend to issue a new version, but there's a lot of work done in between. And that work is not only reflected in the IPMVP itself, it's reflected in application guides, and it's reflected in technical notes, and it's reflected in training programs as well, and through master classes that we do for our instructors and the industry. So my message is, whenever you have an issue as an ESCO or as an ESCO association on M&V, call us, because we have hundreds of volunteers who are ready to tackle those issues, discuss, debate, and come back to you with solutions. And I guess one of the, well, as you can see here, we have 9 application guides currently either in development or published. And I won't read them all, but this is like ongoing work that the IPMVP committee is doing through different committees, and as I said, over 100 volunteers in all those committees. Just to give you an idea of and I'm crossing my fingers that the schedule will be respected, but the first guide was published in 2021 on non-routine event and adjustment. And since you all know what the IPMVP is about, so I don't need to translate that. But it's an example of industry-driven demand that happened when COVID hit in early 2020. I got dozens of emails and phone calls, and so did our IPMVP committee members saying, what do we do with our contracts in COVID? We're kind of stuck. We don't know what to do. And so we started right away working on, first of all, a white paper on the topic. And then we, within a year, I think, a little bit more than a year, we came up with this application guide with 10 solutions on how to address unexpected events like COVID. So it was a huge industry effort, and it was supported by some partners in the US, but that's the kind of example of additional work that we're doing and not really publicized in parallel to the IPMVP. I'll just flag another one. that is coming up. Well, there's a big one coming up on statistics at the end of the year. This one is long overdue and long awaited for by many partners. But there's one on EMNV, for example, and Mark mentioned that monitoring is not the same thing as measuring. And what we want to do with this guide is to address the measurement aspects in monitoring programs. So that will help clarify this issue. Another one coming up, it's the second one on the list here, MNV and EPC for facility owners. Mary Sotos mentioned this morning that we need to find a way to speak to the customer's language. But the alternative is that we need to help the customers understand our language as well. And in our case, it's the MNV language. And so what we did is we're developing this guide to help facility owners understand what they are being presented by ESCOs. Essentially, the kind of language we use, what do we mean by the four options. They don't need to get technical, but they just need to understand, okay, what it's about and what it does and so on. So that guide is almost ready. I have the draft in my back. I'm going to read it on the plane on Friday. Halfway through, so hopefully it will be released sometimes this summer or at the very least, at the very last in September. But it's, again, it's another kind of document that came up from industry demand. So I will pass the other ones, but maybe just one last comment on that. Last week we had an IPMVP committee meeting, and somebody raised the issue about MNV and motors, and so we all discussed it. And I said, well, do we need an application guide on motors? And someone says, well, maybe not a full-fledged guide on motors because we don't know if we have so much to say about it. But what I replied said, well, at least technical guidelines would be useful. And then they said, well, it would be difficult. But then I came back again and I said, well, can we do it? And then they said, well, it's feasible. So at least I got them to say it's feasible. So hopefully we'll get that a little bit further. But again, that's another example of demand-driven stuff that we can address. I'm going to go very quickly on the energy efficiency financing protocol, but this one was created in 2009, and it was used a little bit in pilot projects in Mexico and, if I recall, Thailand. Yeah, Thailand. And so we kind of let it collect the dust on the shelves, I guess, for about 10 years, 12 years. And then in 2019, we got some funding from the Canadian government to update the protocol and to develop a training program that comes with it. The objective of this protocol is to basically educate bankers and credit officers in banks on energy efficiency and understand essentially what they would be financing. And what's interesting is that I've heard a lot of cases today where people said, well, we're financing like $30 million plus projects, or $20 million, or $50,000, we're not really interested. So fair enough, but just to give you an example, there are 4,500 banks in the US. And I don't think that when you get into those regional banks and local banks that they will be financing $30 million projects. They will be financing much smaller projects, and they are interested, but they don't understand what they would be financing. So this protocol is basically helping them understand the whole thing of energy efficiency financing from their perspective and understanding the main technologies that they would be called to finance. So it's, and we're doing well, we used it twice, or we will be using twice in the future. But the first case is, I'm back to the IPMVP and our training program. Somebody mentioned the Potential Easy program. I think it's Julia this morning. We were not involved in that. I just want to make that clear. What happened is that when this program started to be deployed in Brazil, and they came to us and they said, well, we want to beef up the measurement and verification component of our program, and which was already, it's quite an extensive training program, 90 hours, energy efficiency specialists. And the objective is to have those specialists do the audit work so that the program can finance energy efficiency projects in small and medium enterprise and industry. So we worked with Senai, the large training organization in Brazil, and we introduced MNV training at 3 levels essentially, and it's going to beef up the training of consultants and energy efficiency specialists, and also, as you see the last column where there's a green mark, increasing the capacity building of bankers, and we are exploring the opportunity to deploy the IEEFP program with Senai within that context. And we're already doing it in Mexico at the moment with AMENER, the local ESCO association, and the Mitigation Action Facility program, which is run by GIZ and a few other countries. And we did a pilot project 2 years ago with the same group, and at the time the training was only 2 days. It was the middle portion of the training. 2 days and then a group practical exercise on how to structure a loan and an energy efficiency project loan. And the feedback that we got is that, well, we would like to know more ahead of time on the different technologies. We said, okay, well, we're going to develop a self-taught course that you can take online before attending the IEFP. And then they says, well, we need to understand how engineers are talking about finance, because it seems that we don't speak the same language between bank and engineers' financial terms. So we develop another course, 2 hours again online, where people can understand what's our financial language. I can share the training with you if you want. But that was part of the feedback we got. We added that to the course, and then they came back again and said, well, we want to have advanced cash flow analysis training as well on top of it. So we added another 2 days, and the first session should take place in June this year. And then they said, well, we want a certification on top of it. So we're developing a certification exam that will cover all this. So at the end of this 4-day program plus prep work, we would have like certified bankers who have a very clear understanding of energy efficiency. We're covering ESCO as well, big time in this program. And they will be ready to finance projects with small companies, because this is the goal of this program, small and medium-sized companies. And the feedback is very good so far with banks from Mexico, with whom we've worked. I'm sorry I'm taking a long time, but I think that's pretty much it. That's Mark. Back to Mark.
Yeah, no, that's...
He has the last word.
Exactly. No, that's great. Well, I thought we were about to break our promise about going over time, but we're not. This is the last slide. I think in terms of what we've presented, obviously there's much more that we could say, but EVO is fundamentally involved in forming contractual strength for ESCO sector projects, in forming capacity for industry, and as the developer and owner of IPMVP, providing a consistent, internationally agreed and objective basis for contracting on performance, energy efficiency and energy savings performance. I think it's true that, we've heard various perspectives. Most of my work is in Asia, in Southeast Asia, and some big countries there in ASEAN. So Indonesia, Thailand, Vietnam, Philippines, these countries, enormous countries, 670 million population, I think, in ASEAN. And, I think in Philippines we have 12 MNV professionals. In Indonesia we have somewhere like the same number. And the market and the policy framework has moved on, especially in the Philippines, where we have actually written in, partly to do with EVO, the EVO network of people who are involved, writing into their legislation that government energy management programs should go ahead and use ESCO models and should use IPMVP as a basis for measurement and verification. And actually there's a requirement for them to do that. But the capacity to deliver is weak. So, as I said before, we need to take this discussion where all of us kind of understand these topics. We have some history with this. We believe in the power and the possibility of energy efficiencies through ESCO models. But we need to take that message out, and we need to build capacity in these countries. So fundamentally, training and the sorts of things that Denis mentioned around bringing financiers through, understanding what it is that they're financing, is absolutely critical to growing this market, because right now our trajectory is too slow and too small. So we need to change that through building capacity in the market. So EVO is doing a lot of this work and is a natural partner for ESCO associations in countries around the world who are looking to increase uptake of ESCO sector models. And I think that's actually why we're all here today. This is the point of why we have a global ESCO network, so we can share experiences to learn from each other and build the market, grow the conversation, grow this industry for the sake of all of us, and also for the contribution we can make to the global problem that we have. So that's all I want to say. I'm really glad that it's gone so well today and it's been so well attended, and that you're all still here at the end of the last session. I shouldn't say the last session because we have to hear from the organisers, but just really thank you very much for your attendance and your participation here today. Thanks.